What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the UP. We have another long-form podcast with the show, and I am so excited for this guest. I've been excited for this guest for a while. We talked quite a bit about coming on the show, but Dave Faccone Sr., I know you many different ways, but I think most people will know you as the Ribhouse guy.
Yes, probably.
Probably
right, exactly.
the Ribhouse guy. He's got a few kids in a lot of local programs. He's got David crushing it right now. He's out of town seeing his fiance now.
Yeah, I know.
So we could talk about that too. Yeah, we could talk about that too.
Shocking.
And then
true.
you got Daniel, who's at Monmouth, right? Or
no,
not
Moorhead.
Moorhead.
David was at Monmouth. You're right.
Dave was
originally.
At Monmouth.
That's why you said that. Yep.
Okay. There's so many different angles I want to go with this, but I want to start with where'd you grow up?
I grew up on the East Coast, but let me just get something out here real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm so excited to be here with you.
Thank you.
Because we have talked about this numerous times. Mm-hmm. So many of the things we talk about align, and we are shocked by the world we live in. Mm-hmm. So I'm really glad to get it down now so that it's in, permanent and online, plain and simple. So it gives me great joy to be here. But I did grow up on the East Coast in New Jersey, believe it or not. After college, I went to school in Midwest Pennsylvania, and then I moved to Florida for 10 years, and then I moved to Chicago after that.
Is that where you met? Where'd you meet Jan?
Oh, here.
You met her here.
East Bank Club in Chicago.
Okay.
Working out, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Even though for a year we lived on the same floor in a high rise on the 50th floor. She lived at one end. I lived at the other. She's going to hate me for telling this story. But I would get in an elevator and say, good morning. But isn't that common courtesy?
Yeah.
And she would be like, this guy. And then
look at you.
Yeah, a couple of years later in the gym, we wound up talking to each other, and now we're
speaking of the gym. You need to get your ass in the gym. I keep telling you.
I do. Absolutely.
David had told me you started at least cold tubbing your lower half.
I did. I'm doing that. I'm doing some bike. It's gradual for me. I think I could do wonders. If I had a little bit more regularity, you are correct.
A little bit more accountability.
And a little bit more instruction. I think I'm kind of unique in certain areas because of my history. But yes, you're right. Yeah,
well, let's actually get into that really quick because I know, we have some thoughts on different health things that have happened in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And you're a very transparent guy. So can you go over what has happened and what you've been through with your recent health stuff?
Yeah, sure. So I wound up having to have a valve repaired on my heart. And really, it's like having your appendix out today. Mm-hmm. It's not, it's open heart surgery, and it's major surgery, but it's routine. And mm-hmm. They do it all the time. Had it done successfully. Everything's great. 2 weeks later, I can't breathe. You go through the normal routine where you're in intensive care and then you come out, but I'm at home and I can't breathe. Long story short, I got a staph infection on the operating table, undiagnosed for 6 months. So it brought me to this close to death.
So you got the staph infection and it was undiagnosed?
Correct.
So you didn't know you had the staph infection for 6 months?
6 months. I go back 2 weeks later. Jenny brings me back in. They decide I'm suffering from broken heart syndrome. And I'm in...
What's broken heart syndrome?
Right. Broken heart syndrome is like two really tight sisters, and one of the sisters dies. The other sister has a heart attack because she misses the person. It's
How did that happen to you, though?
Well, what they're saying is, like, listen, I'm a pretty energetic guy. In the restaurant business, it's go, go, go.
High stress.
Yeah, and they're like, this is a downturn for you. This is what happened. And I'm like, okay, great, but does a broken heart, stop me from breathing? Because that's kind of
what's happening.
It's one of my concerns. Right? I'm pretty concerned about that.
Well, doctors tend to think you're just an idiot.
Yes.
I've ran into that a couple times. So I got a pilonidal cyst on my tailbone.
Okay.
And I go in and I'm like, this is a pilonidal cyst. And he's like, well, let me just take a look at it.
Yeah.
It could be a pressure ulcer. I'm like, no,
Right.
I know what a pressure ulcer is. I know what a pilonidal cyst is. This is a pilonidal cyst. I've had it for 4 years. And they were almost, and I didn't say it. I understand I'm coming off a certain way right now,
Yeah.
but I was very confident. I'm like, this is a pilonidal cyst. I've had it for 4 years.
Yeah.
And he just acted like I didn't know what I was talking about. He's like, well, let me take a look at it. And I had to pull my damn pants down. And I was like, dude, you can like just feel it. Just give me your fingers. I took his fingers. I put it on my tailbone.
Wow.
I'm like, this is a cyst.
Never heard that line before. Go ahead.
But you could just tell he was like, I don't believe you. I need to do it myself. And
Yeah.
I was just like, dude, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Or the response is don't believe what you read online.
Yeah.
Because you try to do some self-diagnosis.
Well, I think it's important to be in tune with your body as much as it's important to get your checkups and your blood work and things like that.
Right.
But you should be knowledgeable about the things that are going on. So it's important to look it up yourself too.
Right, exactly.
Especially after how wrong we got the most recent pandemic.
Yes, exactly. There's definitely a lot of self-diagnosis that should be happening. That was, I don't even call it a pandemic. That was just a test, and it worked, and they're very happy with the conclusion of their tests.
Yeah, what would you say it was like if you had to describe it? What was it a test for?
For them controlling us. For the leftist elite to control everything like they want to. The tyranny of the few, because it falls into the same elements of can guys compete in girls' sports? All these things that are just trials and tribulations of how much they can get away with to control us. Part of it was COVID,
And it worked.
It worked great.
Not only
It worked great.
Not only did they control us, but they conditioned everyone to help control.
Yes.
So
yes. That's such an interesting point, Steve. So there's a great book that you would enjoy by Eric Metaxas, and it's called A Letter to the American Church. And what he does is he compares what we're living through now to pre-World War II Germany, the conditioning of the people
writing
of
out your neighbors.
Yes,
where are the Jews?
Exactly, right, exactly. And what COVID did is this. COVID, I don't know who did this quote. I think it's Bonhoeffer, but silence in the face of evil is evil itself. Right? You understand it?
Yeah.
So if you sit there and go, well, I'm neutral on this. No, you're not. You're part of the evil. You're helping the evil. And COVID, to a great extent, did that. It conditioned people. My neighbor's not wearing his mask.
Mm-hmm.
In Germany, it was as, hey, my uncle, I'm pretty sure he's a sympathizer. We should shoot him. And it worked very well. People became conditioned to rat each other out or whatever it was. So it's much bigger than people think. I know we talk about the fact that there's something else coming, whatever they dream up.
Disease
that type
X,
of thing.
Whatever's being talked about at the
I think there'll
WEF
be
and the
more
WHO.
resistance this time because now they are completely transparent. They don't hide it anymore. They're not going to be prosecuted. There's no everything.
Who would prosecute them?
Yes, because they've weaponized everything. So they have no fear of. I'll tell you my plan. I'll let you know exactly how I want to control you.
I think the latest thing that I saw was this pandemic treaty. Have you heard about this at all?
No.
So
tell me.
it's. I kind of confused the two, the WF and the WHO, but I'm pretty sure it's WHO. They wrote up, Alex, if you can look this up at all, but they're writing up a pandemic treaty, which would essentially allow the WHO to call all the shots with vaccines and this and that and control every single nation in the world.
Yeah.
So instead of like, oh, the US has their freedom, and because they hate that we are so free.
Right.
They hate that.
Right.
And you can see that in so many ways now.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure it was the WHO, and they're writing up a pandemic treaty that requires vaccination. It gives them full power to with the greenhouse gases and things like that. And there's all this stupid shit written inside of it.
Yes.
But
It's making us surrender our rights. If they ever got away with that, that's what that is. That's a surrender. That means we have no say in it. That would, oh, what devastation that would be. But a clear-cut victory for them.
Oh yeah. Well,
know.
they had a huge victory with COVID, but I do
Yes.
think, because the more people that I talk to, I've had people like apologize to me straight up. I posted about it where someone, because I got so viciously attacked. I'm sure you witnessed a little bit of it when I was like, stop wearing your mask.
Yes, absolutely.
Just stop wearing your mask. And I
Right.
got people that literally attacked me online. And the people that attacked me, they'd never apologized or anything, which is fine. It's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But some people messaged me and they were like, hey, I'm sorry that so many have gone after you, and I hope they've apologized because I want to apologize to you and say I was wrong.
Right.
I was wrong. I was telling my family to get vaccinated. I was telling my family to wear a mask, and it turns out it was all just a bunch of jargon, just
Right.
a bunch of bullcrap.
Well, you remember the conversation we had in the gym. You asked me how I was doing, and we spoke about it. And you know, I had got the vaccination because I was susceptible. I believed, you know, what I was told, and it put me in AFib and put me in the hospital, and I had to be, electrocardioconverted converted. And it's happened several times since then. It hadn't happened before then, but I think it's now a long-term symptom
Yeah.
that I'll have forever. You know, that every now and then I'm going to slip into AFib, and, you know, obviously there's, a lot more probability I'm going to have a serious problem after that.
Right. So now, did you diagnose that, or did a doctor say that? Because I just want to be really clear. Like, we're going to be blasting this out everywhere.
Great question. Okay. I was in for a checkup. I hadn't been feeling perfect, but I hadn't been feeling bad. You know, when you have AFib,
It's kind of like a weak fatigue feeling.
yeah, you know, you might wear out a little bit early or something like that. It's not something you notice. When your heart races, yes, you notice it, you know. But AFib is kind of sneaky. So I was in there getting my checkup, and the doctor comes in. He goes, let me ask you a question because you're a mess. Did you get the vaccine? I said, yeah, of course I did. And he just...
Yeah, of course I did. I was supposed to.
Yeah, he just put his... Now, he wasn't the doctor who told me to get it. He slapped his hand down on the table. He says, this is so common, it's, you know, outrageous. And walked out of the room, you know, shaking his head.
Upset.
So, yes, exactly. So he absolutely blamed it on that. We talked about it later. But at that point, he knew what he was going to do, and he left the room to get me scheduled right away, you know. But that was his question. When he was reading my EKG, he goes, did you get the vaccine? Because you're a mess. And I'm... you know, just think about that. Well, yeah, of course I did. You know, I was told I had to, and he was just frustrated as could be and left the room. Yep, definitely put
It's
me
really
in AFib.
frustrating.
Yeah, oh, of course it is.
And you had to be just pissed.
Well, yeah, it didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
None of it needed to happen. I didn't have to have any of these, sir. I should have been in and out, and okay, boom, go on with your life. You know,
Right. And this
But that's the way it
this
has.
was before your surgeries.
No,
it was
this
after
was
your
after
surgeries.
the surgeries, right? Exactly. So now every 6 months you go for a checkup and, you know, make sure everything's, copacetic. And I just was there for a checkup. I thought I'd be there in my normal half hour or something like that. And then it turned into, a nice little hospital stay.
So what's going on with that? Like, are you on meds and stuff because
Yeah,
of
I
that?
take a couple meds. I'm in the best shape I've ever been. I'm going to say they told me that you're going to dedicate a year of your life after the surgery to healing. I think it's taken 5 years. It's 5 years. There was a lot of things I couldn't do. And then, well, let me just finish the story because it's actually kind of interesting. So I wound up having, I think it was 7 surgeries in 10 days when now they're just like wailing on me trying to figure out what's wrong with me because every day I've got complications and I'm in the hospital.
I remember seeing the post about it because Jan was always kind of keeping everyone updated, I feel like, on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I wanted to reach out, but at the same time, like, I don't want to freaking bother you, you know?
I completely get it. And that's very true because when you're a noodle in bed, the
last thing you care about is some random
exactly.
dude. Exactly.
Yeah. And the sad truth about being sick is I'm a noodle in bed, right? What can I do? The caretaker is the person who suffers. It was Jan who went through everything,
Yeah.
who had to hold everything together, who had to run the business, who had to take care of the boys, all that stuff. You're there, you're just sick. It doesn't take, I mean, it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun,
And
but
if you're anything like me, that feeling, like when I'm just sick here, when I'm just sick in the house,
yeah,
I can't stand that I can't help Kelsey.
right.
I can't stand it. It kills me inside that I'm like there was one time I was just so freaking sick. It might have been COVID, but it was like 12 hours of just like I can't move, like my head,
Right, the
my
frustration.
body, and I'm trying to take a bath, and I'm trying to it's so frustrating.
Right.
So
Take it one more level now where you're hoping you don't die.
Right.
So that makes that much more stress on the caretaker.
Right.
When you're on that borderline.
Well, then you got to start
last
thinking
rites
ahead.
twice there. So I was just on the border.
But
anyway,
you were like that close to.
Oh yeah, definitely close to the big bye-bye, which I found very comforting, believe it or not. But eventually, after all these surgeries, and as I said, I'm a noodle. They come in and they go, listen, we've got an infection in there. It's in your sternum. It's a deep sternal wound infection. It's going to kill you one day. It's going to come back at some time. But for now, we're going to cut a big hole in the middle of your chest tomorrow morning, okay? We do not want you to be upset if you can see your heart. And I'm lying in bed now. I'm a noodle, and I'm going,
What?
Wait a second. Maybe I'm not hearing this right because I'm a little goofy and you got me on 6 IVs, right? Well, we may have to go deep enough where your heart is going to be exposed, and then over time, it'll grow in and cover, and you'll have a terrible. If I took my shirt off, it would look like a cannonball went through me. But that's where I was.
See that when we're done.
Now that happened, but it wasn't. You could see my sternum. It was like just a hole, and I could see your sternum bone. That's how deep it went, and they felt they had gotten everything. And
that was like the cleaning.
That was the final surgery. That's the one that cleaned me up. And
so there is an infection still, because you made it sound like
it's never gone. A microscopic little piece in there someday will trigger, and that's what will get me, plain and simple. But it contributes to a lot of other things. It's very bad for your joints. It like a lot of the things that I struggle with. Yes, exactly. It accelerates arthritis. It does all kinds of things. So that's why I say it's not as easy as me just jumping back in the gym, because I'm not Joe Simple. I have some, I come with baggage.
Yeah, of course. And I would take care of you. I wouldn't throw you in with here's your full body workout.
Right, exactly.
Today. I'd just be like, hey,
get your
Dave,
ass in there.
Go walk for a quarter mile and come back.
Right.
Like that's what it would be to start at least.
Exactly. Yes. I completely understand.
Okay, so the meds that you're on, those are for the AFib stuff.
Yeah,
and then you have what some they stuff are for this
is
infection.
yeah. What I originally had was supraventricular tachycardia, which means you and I are sitting here, and all of a sudden my heart goes to 190. Well, that's not a big deal. It's not going to kill you if it lasts for a couple minutes. If it lasts for 4 hours, you feel like somebody beat you up with a ball-peen hammer. You are done, okay? So that's what would happen, and that's what started my whole process. And then they realized, hey, there's a little bit of a leak here. And then over the years, it got to the point where as much blood was going out that was going in on the valve, and that's when they had to do the surgery.
This sounds like a pacemaker could. Do you have a pacemaker?
I have a pacemaker.
You do have a pacemaker,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So that
Exactly.
and that was in already, or they put it in because of this?
So post-surgery, couldn't get things balanced, tried all kinds of things, a couple more surgeries to try to correct it. Luckily, but they go in through your groin, so you're in the hospital, but it's not like open heart or anything like that. And they just couldn't get the heart to balance, couldn't get the sparks to align. And then on one of them, they said, well, we're going to throw a pacemaker in there too and see if that works, maybe you can fry eggs on it. Maybe it'll help you or something like that. I said, all right, anything else you want to put in there? I have it. But now I think that's why I say I feel the best I have in 5 years. It's balanced. I take some meds to keep my heartbeat regular, and it seems to be functioning finally.
So that means I'm going to see you in the gym.
Yes.
Say it out. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. The last couple of weeks, David's got me doing a couple things.
I know. I've been hounding him to hound you.
Well, that's great. Well, you were hounding me when I was coming around.
Yeah.
It was coming around. And then and in all honesty, like I think the mind has so much to do with health and your heart and stuff like that. I've expressed that to you in the gym. Like,
I was going to say, expand a little bit more on that.
Well, I remember I came to you and I had watched David work out, and I'm going, Steve, I'm not seeing anything here. I don't see any spark. I'm not seeing any, he's going through his routine. Yeah. And you explained to me at the time, he says, well, our history, right? I'm hands off on David. I said, no, I don't know our history on that.
We told the story in Colton's episode. Did you listen to Colton's episode?
Of course I did. Yeah, exactly. So that's when things changed. And if you do a little research and this and that, and I had explained to you, they took a couple groups, and in one group they said, you're going to do 100 jumping jacks, tell us when you get tired. And they got tired at about 67. The other group, they did the same thing, but they're going to do 200 jumping jacks. Well, guess what? They got tired at the exact same spot, 2/3 of 200, whereas the other group got. So the mind actually controls fatigue, and I think the mind controls a lot more. So my whole point was, okay, this kid is not thinking that he's a champion. He needs to think he's a champion. He's just going through the motions here. And that's when you stepped in and things went from, 1 to 10. Which was the greatest move of his career, and it's got him where he is today.
Yeah,
plain and simple.
I would agree with you because I spent that day, and I kind of looked past like we never had closure with that little incident that we had, so we just kind of skipped over it,
right?
And we got to know each other, and it was like gone. You know what I mean? And we joke about it like crazy now. Like I love your son; he's hilarious. But I spent that day more mentally than anything, like you said. So that's why I kind of wanted you to expand on it. But I was like, dude, there's doing a rep, and then there's doing a rep.
Right. And you also brought up the fact about working out with somebody, and you did a couple workouts with him. And I remember that one day you were doing the sprints with the weight tied to you and stuff like that. It was just like, holy smokes, this is levels above what he could possibly do alone. And things changed completely. Plain and simple. In fact, you changed his entire workout after our conversation. It was a much different workout. Okay, now we're going for gold, plain and simple. You're not just here in my gym and I'm going to contribute when I can in maybe not in your normal process, because I see you in action. I know how you operate, okay? But your relationship with him was that standoffish. Plain and simple. And it was obvious to me after you explained the story to me why. I get it, plain and simple. But now
working my way in.
Right. But see, I think that's fascinating about like how that works, how the mind controls the body and stuff like that.
So do you think your mind was holding you back? Is that kind of what you're saying? Or
I think so. I think when you're told that you're so sick, you're so sick, you're so sick, you eventually believe you're so sick. But when you're told you're a champion, you can run a 4.5/40, you can do this, that, or the interest comes into you, the brain eventually gets it and tells your body what to do. I'm completely convinced of that.
Yeah. Manifesting what you want to be.
What about these miracle people who have like pancreatic cancer and then 6 weeks later it's gone and they can't explain it? You can't tell me there's only one way that happens, that the brain controls that, and these rebirthing cells come to work, rejuvenating cells, and they kill it.
Yeah, I actually think there were some studies done where it was like placebo effect and things like of that nature. We'd have to look it up at some point, but they told these people that they were sick, and they eventually just diagnosed themselves as sick, and they would walk around like,
Right.
like I can't move.
Right. Yes.
But it's and that goes. One of the things I like to tell the kids is if you want to be great, you have to surround yourself with greatness.
Yes.
You have to.
Wow, look at you.
Because when I remember I came from the same high school as David.
Yeah.
I would ask to work out after practice. Okay, this is I could mention names, but I'm not going to. But I would get like scoffed at. So yeah,
Really?
So I would be like, "Hey,
Because you wanted to do extra
can I get a quick
work.
lift in?"
Yeah.
And so I got to open up the weight room. Like, well, I don't have a weight room at my house.
Yeah.
And it was like, I felt like that's what I was supposed to do, but the outside forces around me were saying, "Oh, now you're just annoying."
Yes. Yeah.
And I hated that because I look
Right.
back and I'm just like, "You motherfucker!"
Right.
Like it totally pushed me away from what I could have been or what more I could have been. And I look back and I'm just like, man, I just was not surrounded by the right people. And when I would talk about my goals in the high school weight room where everyone's just dicking around.
Right. Exactly.
Everyone's like, oh, Steve thinks he's going to do this and
Right.
that. It's like, what the hell? Where am I?
Right.
We're in a weight room.
Right.
You're supposed to be doing hard shit in here and you're supposed to be talking about where you want to go.
Right.
And everyone be like, oh, screw that. I'm not doing that. And
Yeah,
then
but go.
I get to Baylor and I'm a joke. I'm a joke at Baylor. You should have saw my first hang clean. I remember I did my first hang clean at Baylor.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was doing because we didn't have any real strength coaches or gym teachers teaching a correct clean. So it's kind of like really learning by yourself.
Yeah.
And I did a hang clean. My buddy from Texas, who's one of my best friends now, he's like, what are you doing? I was like, I thought I was hang cleaning.
Yeah.
He's like, no, dude, go down and wait. And it was a huge ego check. And I got my form fixed. My bench went from 300 to 405 at Baylor.
Yeah.
Like it was just this huge reality check. I'm like, oh my God, we had nothing at my high school. We had nothing. And, we like to think that it's been upgraded now since. And
Right.
this is a long time ago. So this is nothing current. And I'm not talking crap. Like I'm just telling it how it is.
Right.
But surround yourself with people that are like-minded. And your son's a perfect example.
Yeah,
Because
that's what we're talking about. This controlling it. When you're around losers, you become a loser. Plain and simple. I mean, let me just interject this. When I came to the area, I didn't know anybody, whatever. But I the junior wolves were starting, and there was these two mythical beasts that everybody referred to that I didn't know, and it was Steve and Greg Drain, and I didn't know about them. And these are the that type of thing. So even though maybe you felt you were shorthanded in how you could have prepared, that image was out there. Steve Drain and Greg Drain were these mythical beasts that were like, this is what you need to mold yourself after. And it's so ironic, not really ironic, but the fact that you're in now training people is like,
I'm doing
perfect.
what I love.
Do people, right, exactly. Do people always get to do what they love? No, very far and few between. The fact that you're there is like, perfect. Absolutely perfect. Which should just drive people to you because you're a genuine person. You're not, okay, sitting at the desk, here's your towel. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
You don't perform, I'm on you. I've seen you in action,
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. But that was my intro to the Drains.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned coming into town. So when did you move to? Or coming into Junior Wolves, what were you referring to? Just moving here?
Yeah, because it was shortly thereafter, the boys were, your dad started the
Junior Wolves.
Junior Wolves.
He was formerly the president of the Cary Junior Trojans.
Right, exactly. I forget what year that was, but we had just moved here. And the first year we played Raiders because Junior Wolves didn't exist. And it was, I think the very next year, your dad was in the library, held a meeting. There was a lot of guys there. I was like a newbie. I didn't know any of them. He knew everybody, as here's
That
another
big old-
mythical beast, your
big old
dad.
teddy bear, yeah.
Yeah, God bless him. And we got underway then. So
So when did you start the Rib House? Was that pretty much right off
well,
the bat?
I was
or?
downtown.
Okay.
I started in Chicago, so I had restaurants downtown in Chicago, and then I didn't come out here I didn't open the rib house out here till 2000.
Okay.
And I didn't have any intention to open the rib house out here. I had just bought that corner because I thought it was a good corner. Down the road it would developed. And even in my short time here, I've seen Crystal Lake. You've been here a lot longer than me. Change dramatically. But my idea was to put a gas station on the corner and then build a restaurant behind it. Eventually, that was my idea. I had 3 restaurants downtown. I didn't have time to come out here. And then, long story short, I had some pressure put on me. You got to do something here. So that little house that goes back to I forget, it was at least close to 100 years old. The barn goes back to the Civil War.
Wow.
Believe it or not. Yeah, the front half of that is put together with, pegs. But anyway, that was my plan.
And then someone said you got to do more with this property. You got to get something going, and you decided to.
Right. I said, okay, I'm going to do a little rib shack here. We're not going to. It's going to be a rib shack. You know how some of the greatest barbecue joints are run down little things. Well, this house was run down. Unfortunately, once we got in there, every time we pulled a nail, the wall would collapse. So we wound up having to gut the thing, but. Ironically, I was told by the city of Chicago, believe it or not, Mr. Faccone, there will never be a gas station on this corner. You are too close to the water. Right down the street, they have the water wells and all that stuff. You're too close to it. And less than a year after I sold, guess what was there?
Gas station.
Gas station. Life's funny, isn't it? Anyway, that's how I wound up out here. But I think we moved out here in 97, 98. What year did your dad start the Junior Wolves?
I don't know. I know
It was like a year before that, maybe.
Yeah, I know the team that won state was his first varsity team.
Okay.
So that's a cool story.
Yeah.
And I always tell everyone my dad won state for them because without the Junior Wolves, that was literally the team that his first varsity team that he coached.
Yeah.
That team with Samson and them or I think it was Samson.
No, Samson had to be younger. Oh no,
but I think he was playing though.
Yeah,
I think he was playing.
You're right.
But they won. They were the first team to win state, and now look at them. They're a powerhouse school. And it makes sense. I mean, look at Cary Junior Trojans.
Yep.
They've been around forever. They've been running that triple option, and then all those teams, man, they're always a good team.
Yes.
Always a good team.
Yeah.
And then we make the Junior Wolves, and
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Can I give you a quick sidebar?
Sure.
So one year, your dad told me that he was going to be my assistant because he was always coaching a team. He was always, and in addition to the administrative stuff, he would, always pick a team. So at the time, I had a roster where we had one odd man, and everybody had to play 11 on, 11 off, and he had come from a meeting, where he was just told that he had no longer could practice on the PR grounds, right? So he's hot. So we had already started practice, and he's in flip-flops. And I can hear those flip-flops popping from about 100 yards away, right? And I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good, right? So I guess we had just warmed up or whatever. And my son, Donnie, the youngest, was the odd man out. 11 on, 11 off. We got one extra guy. He'll rotate in or something like that. And your dad went ballistic on me. He absolutely went, but he goes, no, we're not doing that. I'm abbreviating this. He says, every single kid's going to play, and you figure out a way to get it done, and I don't want to hear any excuses. And smoke was coming out of his ears. Now, it wasn't just aimed at me, It was he had just come from that meeting, and he was, like, wow. He'd take a bear on now.
Well, yeah, because...
And that was his point. You're not going to violate my rule, which is that these kids are here to play.
Yeah. And I remember that talk going in the household. I wish I would have asked some more questions, in hindsight, obviously. But I remember that talk, how... my understanding of it was the Junior Wolves literally built the field. They built the field. They paid for it. They did all the maintenance. They did everything.
Yeah.
And then as soon as it was, it was all established and on the ground, PR's like, well, you got to pay us for that.
Yeah.
And I don't think they wanted to, or something along those lines. So then it started to become this gray area, and they slowly just got shorthanded, which is
I
I don't know the whole story, so I can't speak on it. But I know my dad was pissed.
Well, I would get all the information secondhand, as all the other coaches did, and I don't really I don't know how your dad kept his cool, because that was an ugly situation. It'd be one thing if we were talking about a retired men's league. Okay, then it's a little more. We're talking about kids.
Mm-hmm.
And
the feeder program for your school.
Yeah, there needs to be a little more thought going into
Mm-hmm.
this process than what's going on here. And I have no idea why it happened, but all I know is he had a great deal of self-control to negotiate as that was happening.
He was a good
because everybody
businessman.
else was crushed.
Yeah,
All of us were crushed.
he was a good leader, man.
He was. Your dad
He
was
was a very good
listen,
leader.
There's something about a big guy like yourself or whatever that has some humility. A lot of times, big guys don't have humility.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes somebody great, isn't it? You can be a big guy and you can be a bully and you can do all this stuff and I'll get this done because I'm whatever. But if you have that epistemic humility where you know what you're good at and you can apply your trade to the areas that you're good at and know where you're not good at.
Mm-hmm.
That's an art. That's a science. That's something a lot of people don't have. Your dad had that, and in some of those areas, as I know I'm repeating myself, but man, I don't know how he didn't blow his top sometimes. It was just frustrating.
Yeah.
But it was a great time in our lives. I got to tell you that.
Well, it's the best time of your life, right?
Yeah, it was fabulous. It was fabulous. God, was it great.
How was
Kids
it
were happy.
raising three boys?
Fabulous as well. And the fact that I got to coach them was even better. One of the great things that now is common knowledge. People who eat together bond. And I used to feed my team all the time because obviously in the restaurant business it was fun. And when they were little, we would be going over pregame, strategy, and the hand would go up, and it would be, Coach, are we getting the Rice Krispie cakes for snack today, or is it, that type of a thing? So it's hard to hold them together, but the food did bring them along. So when they take a meal together, and now
There's something about breaking bread together, man.
yeah, and the NCAA finally realized that, and they loosened the restrictions on how you feed your team, because we wound up doing a ton of catering for NIU once that was lifted. Before then, you remember Sean Folliard.
Yeah.
He calls me one day. We had just fed the entire athletic department. The athletic director was a big fan. They even held meetings at the restaurant, and we had fed them lunch. There was leftovers, okay? So I said, I'm going to take the leftovers, put them in my truck, and I'm going to call Sean and find out where he's at. I'll drop this off. And they absolutely went ballistic. No. You're going to jeopardize his career. So how am I going to jeopardize his career? It'll be perceived as an endorsement, and the guy behind him might not like it, and it's going to rat him out. So that's when rules were pretty strict,
Yeah.
What's
And
the
now
guy?
look at it.
Yeah, now it's pretty wide open.
Now these guys are making, tens of
Yes.
thousands of dollars on NIL deals.
Right, exactly. And sometimes I think it's well warranted, and sometimes I think it's a little bit silly. But the fact that you're allowed to spend money on their meals, it doesn't have to come from the school, and things like that is really an improvement.
What going back to your three boys,
Yeah.
it had to be chaotic because I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and it's already chaotic.
Yeah.
So what was that? Like, how did the three boys differ? Because they're all so different.
Yeah. Well, first off, you lose control with the third. 1 and 2, I know you think it's chaotic, and it is. But once you get the third, that's when you lose control.
Because it's
When
not a
Donnie
1-to-1
came
ratio
along,
anymore.
Yeah, when Donnie came along, that's when we lost control.
Were all three planned?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think guys, and you could attest to this, you don't have the drama with the guys. You have the, I'm going to kick your ass If
You got
don't
the
get
testosterone.
right, exactly. So you don't have the drama as if you had girls. So it was a little easier. But my wife, everybody was, after we had Donnie, they go, well, you got to try for a girl, right? You're going to try for and it was like, no, I'm good. I like 3 boys.
Did she want a girl?
She never expressed that. No, she was tickled. She was tickled with every time, we had a boy. I don't know if we would have had a girl. Who knows? That type of a thing. I was, I was of the, listen, I got my foursome, 3 boys and me. I got
Yeah.
my foursome,
Yeah.
just like Mike Nygren, just like Mike Brown,
Yeah.
we all had 3 boys. So we were content,
Yeah.
plain and simple. But they are all very different.
Probably more than content. You're on cloud 9 with your 3 boys.
Yeah, exactly. And Daniel better than probably, well, David pretty well now too.
Yeah.
And Donnie. Very distinct, different personalities. Daniel's really coming into his own now. He's always idolized you. He's always worked out with you. But now he's putting that stuff into practice, and it's working for him. At St. Francis, he didn't really have it all together. And now he's
takes
realizing that, yeah, it does. I think it does. Even though you're in a D1 situation, it takes a little bit of work. It's not that switch you put on, plain and simple.
Yeah, and it also takes a lot of time to realize, okay, this is on me. This is on me. And once you take that weight and you realize, okay, I can do whatever I want with this. No one's stopping me. And I think Daniel's really starting to come into that.
That's very well put. Exactly. He's realizing there are no limits. I don't know if you've seen him lately. He looks like a different person. He sent me a picture a week ago. When we get done, I'll show it to you.
Okay.
And you will be impressed that he's up to 220. They told him he had to put some weight on. He's got a new head coach. They're putting a new coaching staff together at Moorhead. So it's kind of an exciting time. And he feels, as a transfer last year, you really don't have much of a chance of playing. You hope to get on some special teams or something like that. But this year he's fully confident and ready to earn a spot. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and he's grown so much. I love texting him because he'll text me some sort of like stoic quote or be like, Steve, I gained weight today or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But he's excited and you can tell he's really diving into the process head on. And he's always worked hard. It's not that. It's like now he's doing the extra mile.
Yeah, I don't know what has changed in him. I think your analysis is correct. He's a different person. He's much more serious about his career, for lack of a better term.
What would you say your parental approach is? When it comes to being a dad and having 3 boys, like what's your approach to discipline and things of that nature?
Great question. I definitely would be considered old school. Okay.
You're a spanker.
Yeah, listen, there's nothing wrong with a good swift, swat in the butt and go get it done, especially with boys. And, with 3 boys in the house who had a black eye this week, well, they're getting beat anyways, so not that I was, giving them beatings, but listen, I ruled
maybe
when
a little.
they're young. Yeah.
I got a good one time.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. And your dad was a big guy, like you. So it wasn't, my dad played football at Wake Forest, where Donnie's at, right? And he was a good-sized guy for his time, but he had a hand like a mitt. And he'd come down with that hand on your butt or your back. He never did anything other than that, would never hit you in the head or whatever, but he'd give you a swat that knocked you the next week. And believe me, you got it right after that. I think I was a smaller version of that. Listen, you're going to have to go out in the world and you're going to have to perform. Life is not fair. That's why I think, the weight room, the field, is the last bastion of discipline and civility left in this world. I mean, what else? I'm sure when you walk through the high school, you could point out every single person that's an athlete and every single person that's not.
Yeah.
There's a difference. And that discipline, without it, you are part of this, for lack of a better term, soft generation that I don't have to worry about, but you have to worry about because your children are going to grow up in it.
And I think about it all the time.
Yes, it's a sad situation, and that's why I'm meandering here. But that's why I say the ultimate failure of talk conservative talk radio is partly at fault for this, because conservative talk radio is nothing but, can you imagine if a Republican said that? They have not given one iota of information of how to fight something, how to stand up for yourself, how to promote masculinity. None of that. They just point out, they take some unknown ultra liberal person who makes an outrageous statement and they make a rock star out of them because they all put it on the air. And now this person who would have no,
That's a good point.
exposure is a rock star. Look at that. She's the new liberal, or he's the new liberal head of whatever. Whereas the other side's going, they're using TikTok. They will win no matter what it takes to win. They will do it. Whereas the conservative side goes, well, we want to do this properly. We want to work together. In the interim, they're getting their ass kicked. Okay, and that's what we have now. So when I say the war is lost, it's lost. When the entire conduit of information, entertainment, education, it all comes from that liberal side, what chance do we have? So we don't have to, like, when people say, hey, better wake up this election. No, you need to start over. We need to start fighting back. Plain and simple. We need to use the same tactics. We need to get people on every level. I've been asked to run for a lot of different offices, but we need to put people on the Board of Education, on the City Council, State Senate, and right up the ladder. For whatever reason, no one's mobilizing us. I went to a fundraiser a week ago, and John Kennedy from Louisiana, Senator Kennedy, was a speaker. And he gave 700 people in the room. This is in Chicago. And his entire talk was, he just read off ludicrous facts about Washington. Things we had heard before, but some things that were just unbelievable. He pointed out that AOC, who was a bartender, who's been there, a few years, her net worth is just over $6 million now. Magically, just magically, just how that happens. So once they get in there,
what is it, like a $250,000-$200,000 salary?
$170,000 in the house.
$170,000 salary.
Right.
Now she's worth $6 million.
Yeah, magically, isn't that something? Oh, what a hard worker. So once you get there, they recruit you and they make sure you get all these inside deals. We all know politics is crooked. That's no big deal.
Well, anybody that argues that is just an idiot and ignorant.
Right. Exactly.
Like Nancy Pelosi and her insider trading. She's made better deals than Warren Buffett.
Right. Did you know that the minimum wage, federal minimum wage, when it went up, did not apply to the Philippines? You know why? Because her husband is a huge investor in Del Monte. Del Monte has a huge plant in the Philippines, and they would have had to pay them the minimum wage. So the Philippines were exempted, even though they were an American province. I mean, it's not hidden. Nobody. She doesn't try to hide it. Her district looks like a cesspool. She's not hiding that. As long as she's making her millions, it's good. And what good is she at her age? Doing nothing. She's just sitting there. It's very frustrating. But the generation that has to change is my son's kids and your kids. Those are the ones who are going to have to suffer the consequences. So the battle has to start now, and then they have to continue it because it doesn't happen overnight.
I think a big reason I wanted to do this podcast was because, and it kind of goes back to one of your points where, you go down. It kind of goes back to one of your points where, I think it takes a whole lot of good men to do nothing for evil to take over.
Gosh, yes.
And I think you had said it very similarly, but
yes,
evil will prevail.
When
if no
good
one
men
does.
do nothing, evil happens.
Yes. And the completely ignoring right and left. I think just common sense is gone. It's gone.
Yes.
Because why in the world, did you hear about the 50-year-old swimmer in Canada?
No.
There is a male 50-year-old swimmer identifying as a teenage girl, and he is swimming with teenagers, changing the locker rooms with them in Canada. And they've allowed this. And the only reason this is allowed is because all of the people were scared to say something. Because nobody actually, come on, you can't actually freaking think, okay, this 50-year-old male is a teenage girl and we're going to allow him to swim and compete with these girls.
Right.
There's no way anybody thinks that's a thing. But we coddle and enable this movement of whatever the hell you want to call it. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I do.
Okay.
I do. Let me just jump in here. Because if they can convince you and they can get away with something that ludicrous, they can do anything.
That's true.
It's a test for what's coming. It's that easy. I guarantee you, if you polled people, just as you said, do you think that this person who has not cut off his appendage is able to change in with the girls? I mean, if I had a daughter, you've heard a lot of guys say
But even if they did cut off the appendage.
Well, I think they should have to cut it off before they get to compete. Plain and simple. And then you have these screaming libtards going, "Oh, you're anti this. You know what the suicide rate is of a transsexual?" Yeah, actually, I do, and it's post. Once they make the trans. It's not beforehand. And the suicide rate of the parents of transsexuals is higher than transsexuals.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's very. Listen, nobody knows the facts. You got to do a little due diligence. If you do a little digging, your eyes get opened all the time.
It's easy to find the facts that they want to point out.
Yes, because it's all we get.
Yeah.
It's all we get.
Yeah.
You know, every single newscast.
I know a big talking point, and there's a girl who was to transition to a boy. She had a mastectomy, and it was kind of pushed on the doctors. At least that's her claim. And she's suing the hospital system right now. But she had said a big thing that they would say to her parents was, do you want a trans child or do you want a dead child? Because they would say, oh, well, if you don't let the transitioner transition, they're going to kill themselves.
They're leveraging it. Oh, my God.
And they had no stats to back that up.
Right.
Because if trans is so common, then where were all the suicides?
Yeah.
Because if that's the claim, all right, well, then we should see a huge suicide bump back in the day when kids just couldn't transition.
Yeah. But where is that? Show me that. That's a great point.
It's not there.
You should see a huge drop now.
Yeah, you should see. Yeah, right. You should see a huge drop in suicide rate now with younger generations, but we're actually seeing that spike up. We're seeing depression spike up. We're seeing anxiety spike up. And this is a whole other conversation where I think social media is the problem. And I'm a little bit of a hypocrite, right? Like I'm trying to blow this up on social media and I'm trying, but I am doing it out of passion and love for a strong, correct message.
Right.
I'm not trying to get your attention and show you my titties and my butthole as a fitness influencer. I want you to realize if you don't start voting for the right things, more hell is going to break loose. It's going to be further than trans. And now there's minor attracted persons. It's no longer pedophiles. You're a minor attracted person, and they're normalizing it.
How sickening is that?
They're saying, and we could stitch this video in because I just freaking saw it. I just shared it the other day. The TED Talk.
Yeah, I just saw that too.
The TED Talk where there's a woman saying, you know what? If you're a minor attracted person, it's just like being a heterosexual.
Oh, that's such nonsense.
You know, I don't think she was promoting sexual interaction with a young kid, but I think what she was saying was we need to coddle these people more rather than condemn them.
Yeah, but indirectly she is.
Indirectly
she is. She's saying that's okay.
Why would you even bring that up?
Right.
But like, it's crazy. It's crazy to me. And we got there, in my opinion, because of weak people.
Right.
It's like we can go back to COVID too. So many people, nobody wanted to wear their mask. Okay, I was someone who would go out and I would not wear a mask. There was a moment in Jewel. I walk in Jewel. This is mid-pandemic, and I see a client, and he looks at me. He's like, "Steve, you gotta put your mask on." And I'm like, "No."
Right.
And then he's like whispering, and I'm like, "No, I'm not putting my mask on. Like, you have yours on.
Right.
You're good. They have theirs on. They're good." And I made a little bit of a scene because I was a little aggravated that day.
Sure.
Guess what he did right after?
What?
He took his mask off.
Oh, no kidding.
It was awesome. I was like, good for
Wow,
you.
I thought you were going to tell me something differently.
Nope.
That's
Nope. He
not
took
the
his
outcome
freaking
I
mask
would've
off. It was
expected.
my client's dad. And I was like, I just asked him, I was like, do you really think the deadliest virus is the deadliest virus that we are portraying it as, right?
Yes.
This is the biggest thing we've seen in the history of the nation. You think that cute little mask is going to stop it? Plus, are you vaccinated? He's like, yeah. I was like, so what are you doing?
Right.
Where's the logic? Where did it go?
Right.
So he took his mask off, didn't say a word. He shook my hand and I walked away. That was the extent of our
One
conversation.
victory.
But
One victory.
But my point of that is,
Yeah.
if more people just said what they thought, because I know more people think what I say
Yes.
than are willing to admit
Yes,
it.
it's a tyranny of the few. You're right. You're right.
It's a silent majority. It's a silent majority that I think people
Right.
we all have common sense.
Right.
And common sense says one thing. Your TV and CNN and NBC and all this bullshit you see, this propaganda says another thing.
Say the polar opposite.
And I think if more people are vocal,
Yeah.
it's like that. It's contagious.
Yes.
It's like, oh, well, this guy's standing up.
I can jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah, if he's doing it, I could do it.
But you've been outspoken since day one. So is there a calling in you, like we talk about when good men do nothing. Is there a calling in you to get into politics one day?
Yeah.
There has to be. There has to be. Because you since day one,
I keep thinking about it.
Never hidden your feelings. It would be easy to get you major sponsors. That's why I talk about getting sponsors for your podcast, and then turning it into a political run. There are
Maybe down the
so
road.
many weak candidates who get elected.
And they're
That it's
lobbied.
scary,
Just lobbied
exactly.
and controlled. And
Right, exactly. Big Pharma gets a hold of them, stuff like that. But there has to be some type of a calling inside there. Like, I can't sit here and do, well, you're doing, like, this is not doing nothing. You're already started. But that you can't sit still anymore and that you're going to throw your hat in the ring one day.
yeah, it's definitely been reassuring with this podcast too. I got calls, texts, and things like that. And
Wonderful.
And a lot of the same message was some of the things that you said too, where they're just like, man, it'll be really nice to hear someone talk some common sense. It'll be really nice to hear another voice that isn't spewing bullcrap.
Right, right, exactly. Somebody telling the truth. And yes, they're going to be canceled. They're going to have all those things, but you got to be a big enough and bold enough person to withstand that because they will silence you. They will find something in your background. They will, that's the way they fight. So you got to be.
Steve tweeted this in 2010.
Yes,
Whatever.
exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
Exactly. That's how they fight.
But the thing is, I think a big problem with things like that is they do this fake apology online.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not apologetic for what I said at the time. What I said at the time is what I said at the time.
Right.
It's like, do you not think people grow? Even if I did say something weird or bad or whatever, do you not think people grow? Do you not think people change and learn from things like that?
Right.
It's like this blackface, like who is it? Jimmy Kimmel. He did blackface with Shaquille O'Neal like way back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Did you know that?
No.
Why we never give Jimmy Kimmel crap?
Right.
Why don't we give
exactly.
Jimmy Kimmel crap? Because he's
on the left side.
He's
right?
a big puppet
Yeah.
for all that bull crap.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, if you look up Jimmy Kimmel blackface, he did blackface like straight Shaquille O'Neal,
No.
and he did the whole duh, duh, duh.
Right.
It's
yeah.
hilarious.
Right. So that's burning in the back of you, and we'll see that someday.
I don't
Hopefully.
know if we'll see it, but yeah, it's definitely burning. Like I would absolutely ride with a candidate that I believed in, and I would be outspoken about it, but I don't know if I want to be because of what it does to the family. Like, and this is an extravagant
Just going
example.
to point that out.
This is a very extravagant example, but like, look at Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. Look at Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr. Like Donald Trump Jr. can't do anything without in a microscope.
Right.
The same thing with Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden, he's obviously a much larger piece of shit. If Donald Trump Jr. is even at all a piece of shit, but which is hilarious that we don't ever point that out. It's like not okay to talk about Hunter Biden talking about smoking Parmesan cheese on the ground.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's good. He's over it.
Right.
He's a recovered addict. Back off. And then
Right.
what about the crack in the White House? We never found out who that's from.
Yeah. Magically.
We have no idea who that
Yeah.
came from.
Shocking.
Probably at least should be the highest security White House, the highest security building. We don't know where the crack cocaine came from.
Really?
Oh God!
Come on. It's silly.
I'm so
It's
lost,
silly.
yeah.
But let me tell you something. I think you'll find as because right now your mindset is on your children. Once they become of the age where you think they're self-sufficient and okay, you would never want to put your kids through what you probably have to go through to go into politics. But once they become of the age, I think that burning in you will grow even more. I think it'll grow even more because you now feel a little bit more like I don't have to protect them. Not that you would ever give that up, but they get a little bit older, they're self-sufficient, and then, okay, now I've lived some life, my kids are secure, look out world, here I come.
Do you have that burning? Is that
Absolutely.
yeah? So are you? Is this something you're trying to do right now? I know you're talking about it. You're hinting at it.
In fact, I got asked at the fundraiser by a friend if I would consider running for county board. And I may, if I feel I am completely out of the woods health-wise, I would consider running for an office. But I would choose very wisely what office I ran for. I don't want to run for an office where I can't have any impact. For instance, a county board member does not have the impact a mayor of a town can have. And there's a lot of little examples like that.
Is this like a stepping stone situation where you have to kind of get into before you start running for something like that? Like could you really just run for mayor?
Could I run for mayor?
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't looked into this. That's why I'm.
Oh yeah, of course
You could just go for it.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So, like, make the comparison. If you go downstate, okay, you want to go to Springfield, you're 1 out of 100 that's on the conservative side. What are you going to get done? Nothing. That's why there's a lot of 2 years and done Republicans down there. Mm-hmm. They realize that that you can't do a thing. Things are changing now with Mike Madigan out of there and stuff like that. But with Pritzker, who can buy and sell anybody, even control who runs against him, there's not much you can do. So my point is this: I would try to choose an office that A, I know I could win, and B, I could make impact. I don't want to be some guy sitting on a panel. You don't want to waste some time. Yeah, exactly. I'm just one guy who gets to vote, and the other 5 are going to vote against me every time. That doesn't make impact.
Right.
Plain and simple. So that's where I would be at. But we'll see. Yeah,
it's definitely intriguing to think about, but it kind of goes back to what you're saying. Like I think about how helpless it would be. I almost feel like this is more beneficial.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you might be able to do a lot more this way. In all honesty, the greatest. Think about this, okay? No matter what newscaster you talk about, Joe Rogan is the single largest broadcaster in history. In history, that's bigger than any major network, and he's the biggest. So. The influence he has. Okay. We all watch his podcasts and see them now and then or whatever. He's the people would kill to have 250 million people listening to you.
Well, let's talk about Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was pushed off of Fox News. Mm-hmm. He started his own network on X, formerly Twitter.
Yep.
And he gets more views than CNN in 10 minutes.
Yep.
In 10 minutes. And he just went and interviewed Putin.
Right.
Did you watch that?
No, Daniel called me and said you got to see this, but I haven't had a chance to see it. But
I didn't really watch
exactly.
it.
But for whatever reason, he needs to mobilize the troops. It's great to point all this stuff out again. It's great we kind of knew that already, but now how do we fight this? How do we take action? Tell us that. Tell me that, Rush Limbaugh. Tell me that, Dan Bongino. Tell me that, Tucker. That type of a thing. A lot of these guys get comfortable. They write 1 or 2 books. They've got their,
they get their money.
Almost billions, and now they're set. Then name somebody on Fox that hasn't written a book. They'll write a book on blue paint, and they promote it on the network, and now they've got their money, and now they're set.
So what is your answer if you have one? What do you do? Obviously, you vote.
Oh, what is the answer to mobilizing?
Like what is the answer to mobilizing and all this?
So instead of 9 people showing up at a protest, how about mobilizing a town and getting them there, just like the other side does? Okay, right. This insurrection. That was such nonsense. That's an insurrection.
Did you ever watch all the tape?
Yes, of course. Of
Yeah.
course.
It's just like walking. It looks like everyone's just getting like a tour.
Yeah, and they're not hiding it. They're not hiding it that they're making up this whole thing and prosecuting people for it. They've weaponized everything. They don't have to, plain and simple. So it takes a pretty brilliant mind to fight this. I mean, Trump's one of the guys who can't be bought.
So you are pro-Trump, yeah?
Yes, only but I know he rubs people the wrong way. He's a New Yorker, but I grew up on the East Coast. I know that personality. That's a New Yorker. That's nothing new to me. But he can't be bought. He's the only guy who can't be caught. There was a John Gotti's henchman who turned against him. Has just been on the news lately because he's saying, "Listen, I tried for years to buy this guy. And he's unbuyable. You can't do it. So he's one of the few people that goes to Washington, and you're not going to influence him. He's got everything he needs. He's got plenty of money. You're not going to change his mind. He's going to use a businessman's, mind on a political problem.
Yeah.
Common sense, like you said earlier.
Yeah, I like Trump in the aspect of he's going to run the country like a business, and he's going to have the country's best interests. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, Trump has Trump's best interests," and I do think that his ego is a big part of it.
Of course.
I'm not a huge fan, but I would vote for Trump. But the reason I say I'm not a huge fan is because we have so many awesome people like Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk. Those two they're two of my favorites. And they're a lot more unifying than Trump could ever be. And I just think like, of all these awesome people that we have, there's got to be a person who runs a country like a business like Trump, but also has common sense and can bring people together and can be more divisive in the idea as a nation. And I know he tries, but he's also very controversial in a lot of ways. And there's just so many people that would never, ever, 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 ever vote for him.
Yeah, the never Trumpers, right? But here's the thing you're leaving out of the equation. You have to be able to win the election.
Right.
Candace
No, I know.
Owens
I know.
could never win the election.
I know.
Tucker Carlson,
Even though she's
maybe.
a woman and she's black, which is a huge thing that the left
on the
likes to
wrong
push.
side.
She's on the wrong side.
She's on the wrong side. Look at our vice president. Really? Come on. It makes no sense. You have to be able to win the election. Right now, there's nobody like Joe Biden can barely walk, right? I mean, he can't put, any cognitive thoughts together at all, but he could beat everybody but Trump, it looks like. So just because
there's no
of
way he's the
lack
candidate.
Don't be so sure.
You really think they'd throw him out there?
Of course, because then they could put Kamala in there, or he picks another running mate. They're listen. Who could beat Trump? Who could beat Trump on the left side?
Michelle Obama, last minute throw in.
Possible.
That's been my prediction this whole time.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, but it has to be somebody that can win. But in other words, it's easier for them to keep Biden there, even if he just wins the election. And if he should happen to pass a week later, they've already changed their VP or they've got her there. They maintain control. They're about winning, and it doesn't matter how they do it.
One of the things you had mentioned, Biden can't put a sentence together. It's funny because when he was stumbling at the beginning, they're like, "Oh, he's just it's just a stutter." It's just a stutter, guys.
Right.
And you look back at his old talks and stuff. He was a great speaker.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily agree with everything he said, but you look back 10 years ago.
Yeah.
15 years ago. He was great. He actually did really well with public speaking. And now all of a sudden, it's been a stutter. He has a stutter his whole life. Don't make fun of him. And now pretty much everyone on both sides has recognized, like, okay, he looks rough.
Yes.
You can't argue it anymore.
Even friends I have who are on the opposite side of the aisle will confess that in a heartbeat. Yes. He's not all there. But behind the scenes, they still maintain control, so it works.
Right. One thing I wanted to ask you, because you are obviously older than me, what was politics? It's just so freaking divisive now. It is so divisive. And I didn't really pay attention at all until like Trump was in in the running for anything.
Yeah.
I'm told by like my grandpa and like other people that I've talked to, some of the older folks, that it used to be like, oh, you're a Republican, cool. Oh, you're a Democrat, cool. And now it's like, oh, you're a Republican, you're racist.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. So I used to be a political junkie. I used to love to take the Sunday newspaper and cover to cover, just digest it. I love that action. I used to love Face the Nation when I forget, he died young, but it was always part of my Sunday routine. When the Clintons got elected, and I say Clintons with an S because that's who got elected, I became apolitical. I couldn't stand it anymore. It was just too much. I knew a little bit about the history. You know, they used to say, it's changed now, but if you read about a topic for a year straight, you were an expert on the topic. Well, there wasn't that much information to read about Bill Clinton, but there was enough that you knew this guy was a sham. This guy was, I'm sure in high school, he was the guy with 1 million girlfriends and all this and stuff. And he was absolutely great at putting this hand on your back, patting you, going, Steve, you're a wonderful guy. And with that other hand, he was sticking the dagger in your side. That's what he was. Now, that at the time was the mark of a good politician. So if somebody said to me, hey, you be a good politician in that time frame, that's an insult. That's not a compliment. That means I can put the knife in you as I'm smiling at you. So politics at the time when I was younger was a lot more sociable in the fact that, oh, you're a Republican? What country club do you belong to? Oh, you're a Democrat? You're for the working man. Well, hang on a second. The Republican Party was founded in Wisconsin. Did you know that? Mm-mm. And it was founded as the Anti-Slavery Party. That's what they were founded on. They were the party for the working man. Over time, it switched, and now the Democrats became the working man's party, and now it's kind of switching back, where people are realizing, hey, these people are not out for me; they're out for themselves. Hopefully, that wave continues, but it is starting to move. So it was more of a it was a banter. If nothing else, there wasn't the hatred, the absolute, like if I say something about Trump to somebody and they launch.
They lose
it. Yeah, exactly.
And they don't even know why.
Yes. So we're not having a discussion about it anymore. We're having an argument about it. It's become a lot less civilized now. They'll paint anything anywhere and stuff like that right in front of Trump Tower.
It's like I know a liberal used to be like anti-government, like, oh, whatever, man, let's get together. They were like the hippie, right?
Yes.
And now the liberal is like way over here, or if you look at the camera, way over here. They're just so far left, and it's taken. I think what's happened is, let's say this is your scale.
Yeah.
The scale has gone all the way over here, and it's made sort of like kind of like the normal left people lean a little bit more right / kind of fall in the middle now. And I do think the common sense is like we're on the verge of sort of coming back. Like there's this shit that's way over here on the far left. I think it's just so damn far, and it's such a small percentage of people. It's kind of putting this group of people in the middle,
Yes.
And they're almost being like kind of shoved to the right, because it's like on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's like, someone had asked Joe, what do you do? He's like, oh, you vote conservative.
Right.
He literally said that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a tyranny of the few. And if you polled Democrats, I think a majority of them would think that way left stuff is absolutely as wacko as we think it is, plain and simple. So hopefully that works in our favor, because it's extreme, and it's a very, very few, it's not the majority of the left at all.
I don't think so at all either. And I have friends on the left. One of my favorite mentors is on the left, and he just talks to me about how bonkers it is. How crazy it is, and there's so much we can get into, like this immigration. What is going what is racist about a voter ID? Why are we just letting people run through? What possible good idea can come from an open border and a sanctuary city. There is no good idea.
Right.
And now we're giving out money. We're giving out free hotel. We're giving out food. They're getting food service, hotel room service on the taxpayer dollar while
Right.
there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of homeless people sitting on the street. And they've been sitting on the street
Right.
for how long now?
Right.
And that's not a right or left issue.
Yep.
This is our nation. These
Yeah.
are our citizens. We're saying screw you to the citizens, and we're
Right.
giving money and all this stuff to these people who
Right.
are increasing crime. We're watching it.
Right.
We just watched two.
Chicago.
Yeah, look at
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah, perfect example. Steve, that's such a great point. And let me point out, and Alex, I'm sorry, I just moved. But one of the silent
Is this
groups,
mic good? You can hear him okay? Okay.
Yeah.
one of the silent groups now that's not getting enough mention is veterans. Now they're second-class citizens? Really? So some person who walks across the border who could be a terrorist, who is bringing in drugs, is going to get better treatment than this guy who gave his left leg and can't get, some ancillary treatment. He can only get the major stuff because the, Veterans Affairs, that's the way it's structured. Why is our focus not on that and stop this nonsense? Okay, let everybody in. Yes, they'll all vote for you because you let them in, but you also just ruin the country. Look at Germany. Look at a lot of the European countries. There's a reason for Brexit. Why England got out of that, because it's a mess. It's a mess. Whether it's population, whether it's energy. This whole Germany's a perfect example. So Germany did away with all its nuclear power plants because they were going to clean things up, and they had the same goal for 2050. Well, guess what? They have to buy all their energy from Russia. Then Russia shut it off, and they had solar farms polluting the landscapes, gorgeous landscapes being ruined, and now they have no energy, so they're burning lignite. Lignite, which is the cheapest form of coal, which with the most particulate, pollutants, that's what they're burning, and they have to pay 3 times as much to get it from wherever they can.
I didn't even
So
know
that whole, even this whole, hey, we got to be self-sufficient. We need wind farms. Listen, we have an answer. It's called nuclear power. Okay, fission works. In the future, your kids might see fusion, which is the opposite, okay, of fission. Fission breaks up, the particles. Fusion pushes them together, creating heat. It's hydrogen. It's like that's how our sun works. That's how every star works, okay? Well, since I've been around, and I've been here twice as long as you, they've always talked about fusion happening one day. I don't know if we'll see it in my lifetime. You might see it in your lifetime, but harnessing that, when hydrogen fuses, it creates helium, which creates a huge amount of heat. That's how the sun works, okay? So this whole energy thing is, and one of the ironies of it is, first of all, it's a fake, because every 100,000 years, the Earth changes, okay? And we're in the 20,000 year cycle of the 100,000 year cycle. And just 20,000 years ago, Canada was completely covered in ice, parts of New York, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and not just, this kind of ice, 1,000 to 2,000 to a mile of ice. Okay, then slightly the Earth changes its rotation a little bit, sun moves a little bit, and we warm up, and that's the stage we're in now. We're not going to last in this forever. It changes. So this whole thing, what was first? Acid rain, and then, the things changed as we went, and now we got to be carbon neutral by 2050. Any scientist will tell you it's physically impossible. The Earth is greening. I know I'm getting off on a tangent, but did you know that the Sahara Desert is shrinking, and that in the last, I think it's 7.5 years or 10 years, the Earth has greened approximately 2 times the size of the continental United States, or 3 times the size of the jungles. What's the forest?
Amazon.
Amazon.
The Amazon forest, 3 times the size of that, because there's more carbon. Carbon feeds plants. Plants grow. So the Sahara desert is shrinking, So this is a fake, to sell. This is our cause. We got to be carbon neutral by 2050. Well, guess what? Why are they testifying on Capitol Hill? Hey, you're making us build these electric cars and we can't sell them. No one's buying them. Yeah, I
saw
know
that.
some people are buying them,
I
but
saw that.
they're not.
Well, it's not saving you money either.
Right, exactly. And we have the technology where, yes, we can't have fossil fuel forever. At some point, way beyond our lifetimes, it's going to run out. But we have the technology for other things. They have these small modular reactors like nuclear submarines.
Yeah.
How do they stay? How does it work? They can go for years and years and years. So they have these small miniature reactors that SMRs they're called that can pilot things. Well, people are afraid of nuclear power, but there's no carbon emission. There's no emission at all. And with these SMRs, the technology is even better. So that whole thing is a sham, just like COVID was
just a money thing.
A sham, right? Exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
and if you didn't know it was a sham, look at it was like one of the funding bills to Ukraine. They like snuck in
yes,
like
you're
$80
right.
billion for
Yes.
Green New Deal stuff.
Right.
It's like, why are we doing that?
Yeah.
That's not what we're pushing. This is for Ukraine. This
Right.
is for
exactly.
And why'd you throw that in?
Right.
What's
They
going
had
on
the
here?
Secretary of Interior testifying. His budget was $850 billion, and it was to bring down our CO2 emissions. And he was asked, and it may have been by Kennedy out of Louisiana, who I just saw, going, okay, if we spend the $850 billion, what percentage will our carbon emissions come down?
And they didn't have an answer.
Of course not. Of course not. So, and his point was, so you want us to spend $850 billion with a B, and you don't know what it will do. Okay? Well, listen, China uses more energy than the entire rest of the globe combined, and their emissions are the same. So until they and India do something, we're not changing anything.
Right.
We're not. We're just not. It's a fake.
Well, China's a much larger contributor to the pollutants in our world than U.S., isn't it?
Gosh, yes, that's what I just said.
Yeah.
So not only do they
But you
use
said
more
the
energy,
emissions are the same.
no. Their emissions are the same as the whole entire rest of the globe.
Oh,
theirs
yes.
is greater.
Yeah.
They're going very nuclear now, but less than a year ago, China was opening one coal plant a week. A week. That's a staggering amount.
Well, they've got a bunch being built right now.
Right, exactly, and they're going nuclear, so maybe that emissions will come down. But we are a speck compared to the rest of the world that pollutes. What we're not going to make any difference. It's another fake. I know I've made the point several times, but it's a fake.
What do you think of Robert Kennedy?
Poor Robert Kennedy.
I don't think he stands a chance just because when
he's-
you run as an independent, right?
Yeah, he'll just split the Republican vote.
Yeah,
That
which I don't like.
Yeah, well, that's what they want him to do. But he's been silenced. He's been taken. All his podcasts are gone. If you see, his stuff is gone. He's a guy who kind of gets it in the fact that he's more of a common sense thinker, the kind of guy that you and I both would like to see. And
But he's got no chance.
The Democrats will not have that. No way. He's as far as they're concerned, he's half Republican. This can't happen, and that's why they've silenced him. No Secret Service. You see that story? It's perpetuating.
Yeah, he's not allowed to. He's the only candidate ever in the history of the U.S. to not be given Secret Service.
Yep, and he makes the point. He says, "Listen, it's not me." He knows he's got a very good shot at taking a bullet. It's his family that he expresses his concern for, and rightfully so. Who wouldn't dive on a knife for their kids? Okay, it's the same situation, but they've silenced him just like anybody else who's their enemy.
What's your prediction?
My hope is that Trump gets back into office based on the fact that I just filled up and it was $3.59 a gallon. Okay.
What was it with Trump, like 205 or something?
Oh, yeah.
It was something super.
Exactly. And a
super
couple
low.
times at Sam's it got under $2, which was wonderful because we both drive trucks with big tanks. Okay. I need a truck. You need a truck. to go there and spend $120 to fill it up is not fun, But it was under $2 a gallon. Wow, that's less than $50. That's reasonable. That's doable. And think about the working man. I mean, that's really tough on a guy, who's wearing a tool belt and has to have that bigger, oversized, maybe a 350 or a 450 pickup truck or something like that. But I'm hoping the country comes to its senses and they miss all the things. Like when I ask people, well, what is it about the Trump era that you didn't like? Was it the fact that we had no wars? Was it the fact that gas sometimes was under $2 a gallon? Was it the fact that your retirement accounts were booming, that the stock market was booming? What were the things you didn't like? Nobody really has a good answer to that. Well, he's just a megalomaniac. Okay, name me a politician that's not. These guys are all out.
Someone once told me that, oh, well, he was just riding off of what Barack did. And I was like,
what?
What?
Right.
All those years, that's what Barack did? Like, are you kidding me? But those are the things that like CNN would say or MSNBC. Like that's just how they justify someone on the other side doing well.
Well, they justify the immigration the situation. We inherited this from the last administration.
Trump, yeah.
Oh man, did he blow this?
Yeah.
Really? I thought he was building a wall. I must be confused.
Yeah.
It's nonsense. But they don't have to make sense. They don't have to have facts. That's the difference. We have to. They don't. They're not going to be prosecuted.
Yeah, it's frustrating to think about. And I think what I really want out of all of it, and I know obviously we talk, all right, this is the left and this is the right. And I definitely find myself more aligned with the right, obviously. Mm-hmm. But we need to find unity somewhere.
Okay.
We need to find unity somewhere. And it's the hate that drives me insane. It drives me because we're never going to get anywhere if we just keep hating on each other because hate just fuels more hate. Mm-hmm. So it's just tough. It's like, where do we find that unity again? And I don't know if we're ever going to find it because it's gone so far to hate and violence and you're an idiot and you're an idiot. No, you're an idiot.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Hate propagates hate. So if you and I are fighting and you get a good one in, then I'm trying to
you
get
just want to get another good one in.
Yeah, now I got to get one even harder. So that's right. The unifier of types has to be that middle ground candidate. It's not in this election. It's not in this presidential election. But the guy who can talk common sense on both sides, who can go up there, and it could have been a Robert Kennedy.
I think
who
it
says,
could have
listen,
been. Yeah.
There's some good ideas over here, and there's some good ideas over here. Here's how I'm going to govern. I'm going to, make the best decision for the American people. Now, I know politicians say that already, but you have to have some type of a track record.
And he does.
And yes, and stuff like that. So that's how that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen by me outsmarting you if you're on the left or you outsmarting me because I'm on the right. Plain and simple. That argument. I love civil conversations about politics. Okay? I just enjoy it. I love doing. Do you read?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, people don't read as much as they do because everything's so instant on your phone and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I do a lot of reading like on my phone. And usually what I'll do is I'll scroll.
Right.
And I'll find something I like and then I'll look that up and I'll read about it.
Right. I wish people would read a little bit more about world events and what's truly going on as opposed to whatever, they show the girl with the big boobs and that gets the attention. Now they're looking at that, or those stories that have a great headline and every other sentence is an ad. If somehow, we could get our phones to start educating people on both sides. On both sides. Here, listen, here's their point. This is their point, and here's our point, or whatever it is. You make the decision. People don't read enough. They don't do the due diligence, and they don't know about it. Just like energy, just like politics, just like everything we talk of. But don't you think, like, as I make the point that one of the last bastions of civility is sports and discipline, what about religion? Does religion play a part? I'm asking you.
Oh, does religion play a part in
this civility balance?
Religion's always very interesting to me because you get people that are like, oh my God, religious people, and they get triggered by religious. I'm like, I'm not a super religious person. But religious people they don't give me like a bad vibe the way that they're described by, let's say, people on the far left. It's like, oh, he's religious. I'm like, so he's faith-based. He's a good dad. He has a family. He treats his kids good. He wants to go to a private school. Like what?
Where's
the bad part? And I don't get me wrong. I do think it's a smokescreen for some dirtbags. I do
that
think
hide behind it.
That hide behind it.
Yes.
Like, oh, I'm a very religious person. I name my kid. My kids are Matthew, Luke, and John.
Right.
And I just chopped up a body in my backyard.
Right.
Like
that's just virtue signaling at the most pinnacle of its.
But I think religion. I don't think there's anything wrong with religion. Like if you look at what the Bible and what the Bible teaches, treat those as if you wanted to be treated.
Right.
Okay. That's fine. The lessons that are in the Bible, like even though some of the stories could be a little outrageous and weird and transcribed a certain way over thousands and thousands of years, I don't think the message is bad. The message is have good, positive thoughts, put out good in the world, treat people with respect. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with religion. So I think it could be. I think if done correctly, it could be a unifying thing. But it's so like, what's the first thing that COVID shut down? Churches.
Absolutely.
Like, why'd you shut down a church, but then all these protests were allowed to happen?
Yeah.
How does that make any sense? You're allowed to get together, scream at each other, and cuss and all this and protest and wave signs, but you can't sit in a church while one person in the front talks.
Right. The reason I asked that, because you gave the answer that most people respond. I'm not a super religious person, okay? I'm more spiritual than I've ever been, or something like that. The question is, do you believe in God or do you not believe in God, okay? And the only religion that's not a good religion is the religion that is sworn to death, to kill other people, okay? But most religions, it's about believing in God. Because if you don't believe in God, then you have mayhem. And that's analogous to what you do in the gym, okay? It treats that virtue of discipline brings good. Religion brings good. It makes you a good person. You don't have to be able to quote the Bible. You don't have to be able to, be labeled a Jesus freak. You just have this faith that there is a higher power, and I believe in it, and I hope God blesses my children. That type of a thing. I even think like I would love to, I don't know if you've ever heard the term more plates, more dates.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think there should be weightlifting classes for guys who are the polar opposite of the guy who gets in the gym, because that would build confidence in him.
Yeah.
I guarantee you could quote a million guys that you took who were the guy who used to get sand kicked on them in the beach, and now they are confident. And you don't have to be huge. You don't.
I have clients that
exactly. You just have to be, well fit, and you gain that sense of confidence. Now you know how to look a man right in the eye. Now you know how to shake hands, and now you know how to get a job. It's not like you've been in the closet playing Game Boy for the last 17 years, and you're walking into a place looking for a job, and the guy looks at you and goes, "You got to be kidding me! I'm going to hire you." That type of a thing.
Yeah.
So I think those two things. What I'm getting to is your point about civility. Those are the last two things that do it. Schooling doesn't. Going to school is completely the polar opposite of what we want to teach. The Ivy Leagues especially. Oh my gosh, come on. It's terrible. It's out of control. But I think those are the two that can bring some of that peace that we're talking about, where it becomes a civil argument and not an absolute all-out, death threat.
Well, I think adversity, just to go off your point of the weight room, I love the weight room for more than just sports performance and, being a strong bencher and you can squat a lot.
Right.
Adversity makes you someone different, and you are guaranteed struggle, adversity in the weight room. You're guaranteed it. The weight room, the weights don't lie. The weights will not freaking lie. You're either stronger the next day or you're not. And the only way to get stronger is to get under that heavy ass bar and get stronger. You have to push. You have to push to exertion. You have to push till you're tired. And there's something about that.
Right.
Men especially, I think
Yeah.
everyone needs a little adversity. Everyone needs to feel a little uncomfortable because then you come out of it feeling
Part
stronger.
of life.
It's a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger. And that, yeah, it goes with everything in life. You're gonna get knocked down a million times in life. So I think if you knock yourself down a little bit every day in a workout, you're like building yourself. You're putting yourself on a mountain, so it's harder to knock yourself down.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, especially for men, the more you do it, the stronger you freaking get, the better you feel, the more confident you are.
Independent.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can stand on your own 2 feet.
Right.
So when did it become an implicit pleasure for you to mentor and teach people that you knew, hey, you know what, this is what I'm going to do? I see this burning in your eyes as you just told that story. Alex, I don't know if the camera was on him or on me, but you were a different guy there for a second. So when did that happen? When did you decide, you know what, I actually enjoy, and I'm putting words in your mouth here, I enjoy this more than competing, mentoring and helping people. Because there's 2 great things in the world. One is medical. You healed somebody. The second one is food, feeding them. You fed them. You're right in that second group. It's food. You're making them, you're preparing them for life. When did that become a great joy for you? I'm sorry to go off subject.
No, you're good.
When did you realize that?
So I knew I wanted to be something in the weight room, like a strength coach or something, the day I realized that it came very easy to me. The understanding of the body, how the body moves, how the body works, and this muscle and that muscle. I knew it. My coach was like, he was doing a single arm cable press.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's standing facing out.
This is high school, college?
This is college.
Okay, college.
I always knew I loved the weight room.
Okay.
But I knew, like, it just clicked to me. I'm like, okay, these guys don't get this, and I do. So he was doing a single arm cable press. It was Coach Pat Ivy, who was a very recognized strength coach. And he's like, what am I working right here? And everyone's like, tricep, chest. I was like, no, it's your core. And he gives me these big bug eyes. He goes, yes.
All right.
And I was like, okay, why didn't everyone else get that? And I was just kind of like, that was obvious to me. And then, so I knew that I understood movement and things like that very quickly. And it was just something that came very natural to me.
Sure.
And then I always found little wins with like my family and my friends where they would come to me because they knew I loved the weight room. They're like, what can I do and this and that? And I would help a little bit. I'd give a free program there and I'd help there. And I eventually became a trainer at Wilson's Fitness in Columbia.
Okay.
Loved it. I loved it. And I just found that pushing my love for something that I knew was so beneficial onto someone else.
Yes.
And then them finding that satisfaction in the work was so satisfying. And
yes,
it's
see?
so
Look at the way you
satisfying.
talk.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
It's the best thing in the world.
So wait, so when you were in college, you were thinking, this is what I may do for life after my career's over.
Yeah.
Oh man, you're a lucky guy.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't figure that out.
Yeah. So I had after college and before playing professional arena, I had 3 job interviews, or I had more than 3. I got 3 job offers.
Okay.
And I remember the ones that I didn't get, the offers that I didn't get, I was talking about my future business. And looking back, I was like, well, of course they're not going to hire me. I was talking about what I was going to do in the future.
Jump ship,
yeah.
Right?
It's like, duh, idiot.
Make a note on that one. Note to self.
But I find so much joy, and nobody can argue that weight room, weightlifting, fitness, nutrition is bad. There's not a single bad thing about it.
Of course.
Well, unless you're one of those idiots that are your toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yes.
It's crazy to me. But the texts that I get, mainly from the kids. I love the text from the kids. I have a folder on the computer that Alex is on, and it just says training texts, and it's probably like 150 photos, screenshots of texts, and it's like, Steve, I hit my first home run today, or I scored a touchdown, I gained 50 pounds, or whatever the heck it is.
And your heart swells.
Well, and it's more than just that moment.
Yeah.
Right? Because okay, I got a text from Ryan Mendoza the other day. Ryan is a client of mine that he just really gravitated to me. We just got really close. Kind of like how me and David are doing right now. We're just gravitated to each other. And it's a lot more than training, right? Like I've shared with him my views, my huge anti-big pharma stuff, and like everything. And he texted me one day. He's told me he got his buddy off Adderall.
Ah.
And he's like, I thought of you right away, and I just want to let you know it feels so good to help others. And I freaking cried.
Interesting.
Because
Wow.
now my little web that was like this
Your
big,
mission statement just
now it's
became
like
true.
Yep. And now it's like my web is going from here to here, and then he's gonna that buddy that he helped get off Adderall. Well, now he's gonna help someone else get off Adderall, and it's like this huge web connection. And it's moments like that where you see like, okay, maybe only one person watches our podcast,
Okay.
but maybe that one person's like, well, I heard this from Steve and Dave.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell someone else, and I'm going to tell someone else.
Right.
And maybe it'll inspire that one person, then that one person inspires their parents, and that causes their parents to live longer. And it's this huge like web and this snowball effect. And
Right.
you express that positivity, you make a positive change. It's 100,000,000% contagious.
Right.
It's like calm beats. It goes back to the saying, calm breeds calm, panic breeds panic.
Yeah.
The things around you and the way you present yourself, it's going to be contagious, and you're going to
Right.
spread whatever that message is, and it's just the best feeling in the world.
That transformation is what motivates you.
Yeah.
You know, plain and simple. You're not just teaching somebody how to bench press. I'm teaching you how to be a man. I'm teaching you how to be a young lady.
That's a big selling point for us at TNT.
And to watch that happen that's the gratification that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because it's very obvious. It's very easy to read you when you talk about it. You know, you're a little
just
different.
get all fired up.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Well, if you didn't, would you have lasted? Of course
No.
not.
Not in the super saturated world of training.
I was just going to say, every week there's somebody who's discovered a new whatever.
Well,
and go to that gym.
every ex-athlete is like, oh,
Yes.
I'm making
Yes.
programs now. You
Yes.
know, come check out my program, my training. The fact is, you can find any program, any type of training, any type of nutrition information online. You have a supercomputer in your pocket.
Yes.
You can do that. That's
Right.
fine. Anybody can do that. And there's many ways to get in shape and get better and jump higher and things like that. There's no one way to do it.
Right.
But not everyone does have is the passion that I have. And and one thing that I like to say is when you have the ability to influence, you have no reason to keep that to yourself, especially if you have a good message about love and passion and growth.
Yes.
So one of the things that I say when I sell kids or when I sell parents, and that sounds bad selling parents, but I'm just like, listen, your kid's probably not going to be a professional athlete, but I promise you when he trains with me, he's going to be a good dude.
Right.
Or
He's going to
she's
get life's
gonna
lesson.
be a better person.
This
Yeah.
is a life lesson. This is not just a workout. That's the difference between just going through your reps and going to your gym. This is a life lesson.
Right.
We might build some bonds here. We might be friends for the rest of our lives. I'm going to be so proud of you if you achieve your goal. But there's also a win-win there, because I try to always think positive. So if I'm in there and I don't get my whatever it was I was trying to bench, I'm not disappointed because I got closer to it than I did the last time.
Right.
And if I did get it, well, then I'm still, celebrating. So where's the downside to that? There's no downside.
Well,
to
not only
plain and
that,
simple.
but if you don't get it, you get to evaluate where you can get better.
Yes.
So it's like, why didn't I get that job?
Right.
Well, I said this. Okay, well, maybe I shouldn't say this.
Yeah.
Why didn't I get that bench press?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I slept like shit last night, and I ate pizza for the past 2 straight days.
Right.
That's why I feel like crap today.
Right.
So you get to evaluate, and you get that you learn so much about
Self-analysis.
yourself.
Right. Exactly.
You learn so
More
much
life
about
lesson.
yourself.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and for a young person, I think it's really important to get in the weight room.
Yes. I
It's
agree.
really important to get in the weight room.
Right. And for non-athletes. Because
We have a couple of those.
Listen, guess what? You don't need a safe space. You just need to come and work out and get a little confidence, and your life will change. Believe me, it'll change. As you know, I'm saying what you would say.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of times I think, like, the reason I brought up about sponsorships is, there's a reason athletes have agents, because agents can talk about the athlete better than the athlete can sit there, because
Right.
it sounds like
The athlete can
boasting.
play.
Right, exactly. And I think you're in that same position. I think you could have major sponsors, but not completely done on your own, but people selling you, plain and simple. And there are people that do that, as you know. There's highly specialized people who would have an interest in that. And sometimes that works better than you going, listen, here's what I'm doing. And it might sound
Yeah.
boastful,
Yeah.
but the fact that you light up about I know we're way off topic.
That's okay.
But the fact that
That's the whole point of this.
that whole implicit pleasure is obvious. I even in Colton, I see that in there when I ask him questions and stuff like that. And it has to be that, or else it's just a humdrum thing that you'll probably do for a couple months and then like, hey, this is not my thing. If you're not getting that pleasure of changing people's life path, there's really not much to it, is there?
No, I agree.
That's why I'm saying handing out the towel at the counter, like.
Well, and that's what you see in these gyms or these trainers that pop up and then they go away real quick.
Yes, yeah, right, exactly.
There's so many of them.
Right, yep. Come
So
and
many
go.
of 'em.
Right, exactly. Well, good for you because you do a great job at it.
Thank you. Now I'm going to see you in the gym next week too. Sounds
Okay.
like
yeah, absolutely.
it's official. We're blasting
I
it
was
out.
just gonna say, yeah, right
Yeah.
now it's on record.
Okay, so I'm going to do a complete 180 on our conversation.
Sure.
David had told me to ask you about a club that you ran. What was it called?
Club Spanky.
So,
But it was Spanky of the Little Rascals.
okay.
You know, that's what it was named.
So
after.
what kind of club was this?
So it was a nightclub, and this was right after I got out of college. My brother was a musician. We wound up buying this club. He knew about it because he was in the business, and we, you know, I was at the point coming out of college where I wanted to go, you know, to work. I was done with academia. I now wanted to go out and make money. And now all of a sudden, my brother's negotiating to buy this nightclub. And my last year of college, I'm at Shippensburg in Midwest Pennsylvania. And my last semester, I had classes Tuesdays and Thursdays. Thursday night, I would leave. I would run the club Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. Monday night, I would close up. Tuesday morning, we had an assistant manager. I would drive back 3 hours. I'd pick up my buddy Gary Gray from Philadelphia, be a class, and then Tuesday, Thursday, and then leave. So it was like, to me, the greatest thing since sliced bread. I was in love with the business. And we wound up getting really hot. Live entertainment was big at the time. You name it, we had them. Everybody from the E Street Band to everybody. And it was just a wonderful time in my life, but the nightclub business is short-lived because as soon as somebody opens up with bigger lights, bigger dance floor, or whatever, you're in trouble. Like bars are like that some ways too. The Stone Pony was our biggest competition. Have you ever heard of the Stone Pony?
No.
They're celebrating. That's where Springsteen
Okay.
was made. And I used to work at the Empire Bar right next to the Stone Pony. And every, you know, Saturday night we would close, go over there, and he'd come in and do the last set. But I was in the nightclub business for about 4 years. And then I had a falling out with my brother because I wanted to expand and he didn't want to expand. So it was
Working with family is really hard.
yeah,
Or
and
friends.
yeah.
Family or friends, it's tough. It's a weird dynamic that you
right,
that you have to
exactly.
work.
And he was on the road. He was one of the hottest bands in the area on that whole circuit. So he was only there limited times, you know, specifically when they were playing there that weekend or whatever. And it was live entertainment 7 nights a week. It was a different time. You know, there was no DJs or anything like that. MTV had not been born. It was just coming out and stuff like that. So it was an exciting time. I'm surprised he brought that
Well,
up.
I'm sure you learned a ton in that time too.
Yeah,
Like it's just about business in general.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I had gone from academia to now application.
Right.
And I had an advertising budget. I was making decisions that affected people's lives at a very young age. So it was a great learning time for me, as well as, you know, you got to perform. You have to perform. You better be a success.
And I'm sure you carried a lot of those skills into the rib house that we all know as Crystal Lake Ribhouse that was here forever.
Yeah.
You're still doing that, right? It's just you don't have a location now.
Correct. We might in the future. We'll see what happens. Plain and simple. But you know, COVID messed up a lot of things. You know, we all talk about, you know, the supply chain and people not working and getting paid more to stay home and stuff like that. It really hurt the business. We got through COVID, and then shortly thereafter, I wrapped it up because it was not it was not worthwhile in the stage it was in. Is it worthwhile now? Yes, it's bounced back. Unless you're in, certain places. Like I would never be in business in downtown Chicago. They're just taxing people to death. Eater posted yesterday, which is a industry standards newsletter out of Chicago, of 7 closings in River North. 7 closings, okay? And on a weekly basis, they post closings. Now, there's a couple of new openings here and there, but in other words, it's, do you know that
Closing more than it's opening.
yeah, and the present mayor now wants waiters and waitresses to make minimum wage, the $15 an hour. Well, how do you substantiate that? Now I got to charge you $45 for, a pickle. It just doesn't work, So there are areas like that I would never be in business. But around here, would I love to do that again? Absolutely. Boy, I love that hanging and banging, slapping palms and getting in the back.
Oh, you're so good at that, man.
I never, when I was a kid learning how to cook, the kids coming out of CIA, if there's time constraint, tell me. I'll make it even quicker.
We got about 10 minutes.
Oh, wonderful. So I worked at a French continental restaurant, learned how to cook there. And these guys would come from the CIA, Culinary Institute of America, which up in Hyde Park, New York, not far from where I was in North Jersey. And they came in, and really they were shoemakers. They didn't know anything. They knew how to make a bechamel. But when you went to the culinary school then, you didn't get anything about accounting, finance, marketing, entrepreneurship, any of that. It was just, here's how you sharpen a knife, here's how you make the sauce. And I thought to myself, wow, this is not for me. I don't, I'm better than these guys already. So I went to school to get a degree in accounting and marketing. That's what I loved. I wanted to know how to run a business. I never wanted to be the world's greatest chef. But I love that business, and that's the business I wanted to be in.
And you are such a people person, man.
Yeah, that's what I love.
You love
I
it.
love
You
that
can,
action.
and you could see, just like you see my love for, helping others.
Yeah.
You love to be around people. You
love
love the
mixing it up.
handshaking. Like,
Yep.
I love shaking your hand, man.
I love
you
mixing
could
it
just
up.
feel it.
Yep, I love mixing it up. And so I took a different course. But that has changed now. So when you go to culinary school, you get all that stuff. They're trying to put you in business. They've changed, or else they wouldn't be in business today. The CIA, as well as Le Cordon Bleu, which is downtown, Linda Calafiore, a friend of mine, who started that in a place probably no bigger than this office, wound up selling it out and made a fortune. But I mean, chef school is very popular now. It's extremely popular. People all have that dream. The number one fantasy of retired millionaire executives is, this is an American Express poll. The number one fantasy is, Alex, do you know?
No idea.
It is to own their own restaurant, because they think they're going to be like Rick in Casablanca, walking around, meeting and greeting. The gorgeous women are around you.
Now that right when you said that, I was like, I do want to own my own restaurant.
Everybody does. Why is it that doctors, very smart people, are always losing $250,000 in restaurants, $500,000? Because they all have that same fantasy. Investment, and even institutional investment, is easy to come by, okay? It's because they have that fantasy. They don't understand this is how it works. Dave, the toilet's underflowing. Install 2 in the men's room. Okay, so that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
There are the good sides to it, but there's that other side that it's not as glorious. I'm sure there's parts of your business that are not as glorious.
Oh yeah.
So we all have those things, but there's a fantasy with the restaurant business that comes along with it that people love. I was in love with as you just said, the people person aspect of it. I love that action. And there is, let's go back to an implicit pleasure into serving somebody something and they love it. Just like you get that joy from, hey, I made this person better, stronger. I gave him life lessons. Well, I didn't give him life lessons, but I can tell him how to cook the brisket. Maybe that's part of it, that type of a thing. But there's a pleasure in that, and it's very gratifying, and it's very satisfying. And there's since forever, as you said earlier, when you break bread with somebody, there's a bond there that comes. It's the same thing with me with the business. It's just enjoyable.
Yeah, what I like to tell people, so we have a 90-10 rule. So our 90-10 rule is 90% of the time you eat really good. You earn your food, right? 10% of the time, eat whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Okay.
Why? Because when I think of my happiest moments, well, it's changed a little now because I've got a beautiful 3 and 1 year old.
Yeah.
But when I think of my happiest moments where you're like belly laughing and you're just dying of laughter, I'm either eating food or I just got done eating food and I'm with family and I'm breaking bread with someone. Like those are the
Right.
happiest times ever. So I'm like, don't ever take that away.
Yes.
You never go 100% into a diet unless you're like bodybuilder, you're trying to be 1% body fat.
Right. I see what you're saying.
90% of the time, you eat great. You eat for performance, you eat for health, you eat for longevity. 10% of the time, you break bread, you break out, which by the way, this is my transition to this. My mom wants some of those red potatoes.
Oh, she always loved those. She always
wants
loved those red potatoes. Oh, that's so funny.
I'm gonna pick your brain too because I've been messing with brisket. I want to we'll have to just hang out one day. We'll have to hang out.
I would love to. You know, years ago, I used to call them Q heads. There was very few guys, but they would come in and ask me questions about barbecuing in their backyard. But now with technology, most guys, you can have the same technology in your backyard as we have in the restaurant. So, I mean,
Traeger.
It's like the new, you know, the guys used to show their riding lawnmower. Now it's their smoker in the back where they have the mini fridge and that type of a thing. So it is become mainstream, you know, recently. And guys, Mike Nygren is great. He's got 5 of them behind his house. He's really good at it. But it's the same thing. It's a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of practice, and
Definitely
it comes
a lot
along.
of practice.
Yeah, and then you eventually like what you like. What I like, you might not like.
Right.
One of the interesting things about the restaurant business is you can't design a menu that you like. You have to design for the masses. I need to make a chili that everybody loves. I might like it super spicy. I'm not going to sell that. So part of that trick is designing for the masses, and you'll find that you'll like brisket the way you eventually get to, you know.
You'll find your own way. And you
Yes,
see that as I've looked
exactly.
online, all these guys are like, don't do it this way, do it this
Right,
way.
it
And
has
it's like
to be racked and booked. Your paper, there's no way. You got to
Yeah.
wait. Yeah.
some idiots use aluminum foil. You have to
Yeah.
use butcher paper. Yeah, I've seen that
Right,
before.
right, exactly.
All right, we're running short on time, but I want to ask you one more question.
Sure.
What kind of advice would you give, let's say, the young business person? So you got to give, someone comes to you, Dave, I'm a 20-year-old, I'm in college. What kind of advice would you give me to
Specific to my business? Because it would be different if it was just
No,
a
I
general
think just in
question.
general. Just in general.
Okay. If it was specific, it would be work in as many places as you can, learn as much as you can,
Experience.
steal as many ideas. Right, exactly. The restaurant business is being able to do a lot of things. If it was just in business in general, my number one, make sure you're financed properly. Don't go into business on a shoestring because it will come back. A lot of people, here's what they do. They've got $100,000 as an example. I'm going into business. They spend their $100,000 and then they go, well, I hope we get some customers. Well, you got no dollars left for anything else, you know? And when I was in business, I was always about 4 to 5 times the average independent restaurant in revenue according to industry standards. And that was because I was a promoter. I like to promote. I like to do things like that. Well, that takes dollars. You can't spend everything on your business and then have nothing to let people know of your services. You have to be well financed. And so many people, that's like why I have a barn full of equipment, because I go to these auctions where people have spent, you know, literally millions of dollars, and now it's
You
going
just
for
snack
10
it up.
cents on the dollar, and then eventually I'll use it or I'll store it and resell it or something like
I'm
that.
the same way.
Yeah.
I got a warehouse full of stuff
Yeah,
because of gyms that go out of business.
right, exactly.
I've bought like 2 or 3 gyms that went out of business. I have a warehouse just full. Just I could build a gym right now tomorrow.
Right, exactly.
Alex has seen it. Alex has
Yeah.
helped me move
Yeah,
shit
there's
into
so
it.
much in there.
There's so much
and
stuff
that's
in
lack of finance.
Yeah.
You didn't finance yourself properly. So that'd be my number one, you know, do your homework and make sure you're well financed.
Awesome. Well, Dave, hey, it was awesome having you on.
It
Man.
was a
It's
pleasure.
Been so fun.
It was a pleasure
Really
watching your
appreciate it.
eyes glow.
Yeah, you too. You too. You get that same glow in your eyes, but I really appreciate it.
The pleasure was all mine.
Maybe we'll have you on again.
That'd be great. Thanks,
Dave.
Steve.
Yeah,
You're the
thank you.
best.
That was awesome, man.
Put it right there.
Ha 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 ha!